How do you stop judging other people's bodies? People ask me this all the time. They have super judgmental thoughts about other people's bodies, food choices, what they're wearing, how they're living their lives in one way or another, what they look like. They have these judgmental thoughts and they want to know how to stop. And they're beating themselves up for being some kind of horrible, mean, bitchy person who has nasty judgmental thoughts. So the first thing I always say is just recognize that this is normal. This is a very normal response to having grown up in a culture that is sexist, fat-phobic, that there are so many parts of our conditioning that play into this. And we live in a culture that's obsessed with weight, obsessed with beauty. It is absolutely normal to have judgmental thoughts about other people's bodies and choices. So first and foremost, forgive yourself for being a person who is having a normal response to that kind of conditioning. And then just notice that you want to hold yourself accountable because you don't want to be a person who believes those thoughts anymore. That's the key. So holding yourself accountable for these thoughts means not necessarily blaming yourself for the first thought, the first judgy thought that pops into your head, like, oh my God, they shouldn't be wearing that, or wow, they need to lose some weight, or she would look better if she would do such and such. These are judgy thoughts that might pop into your head, and your job, if you're holding yourself accountable to unpack and dismantle this kind of conditioning, is simply to acknowledge that it's there. Just notice that it's there and hold yourself accountable for what happens after that. Not for the first thought, but for the second thought. So that is the next thing to do. You notice the thoughts, you catch them in action, and you clearly label them as what they are, which means that in the example of she shouldn't be wearing that, you label that to yourself. You say to yourself, I'm having a sexist, fat-phobic thought right now, or I am equating her moral value with her appearance right now. That's what this thought is. You label it as clearly as possible in the moment so that you are able to really recognize catching your thoughts in the action, holding yourself accountable for the next thing that happens in your head. And that gives you the opportunity to do the next step, which is to interrogate those thoughts. Really explore, challenge, unpack, and question the thoughts that you have, because those thoughts are not facts. They're just, as I said, a part of the conditioning. They're a part of the way that you've been socialized to believe about bodies, about people, about value, about weight, all of these things. So once you notice in real time, oh, you had that thought, you label it as the thought that it was, then you get to explore it. And exploring it can look a lot of different ways. Asking yourself, what beliefs is this based on? Where did I learn those beliefs? When did I learn those beliefs? Who taught me those beliefs? Who is benefiting from these beliefs? Are they even true? How do I know that they're true? Or are there other ways of looking at this? You can just keep asking yourself these questions and gently, with compassion, challenging yourself to explore this thought. Who is it hurting? How does it make you feel? What do you do in response to this thought? What would it cost you to release it? These are all questions to explore. In this stage of the process, it can be really sticky because you might think to yourself, I really want to not have this thought anymore. I have to explore it so that I can change it and not have this thought anymore. But I really encourage you just to be gentle with this. Exploring, challenging, interrogating your thoughts is a process of putting distance between you and those old thoughts. It's not going to be like a light switch where all of a sudden you never have that thought again. You're not going to instantly believe the opposite of the thought. So, for example, you're not going to instantly be like, oh, she should stop wearing that, or she shouldn't be wearing shorts or something, and then interrogate the thought, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, she should be wearing those shorts. How great for her. That's not how this works. It's more like you interrogate the thought, you go, why did I think, who is allowed to wear shorts? Where did I learn this? You ask yourself all these questions, and now there's just a bunch of space and distance between you and that original thought. So once you have gone through this process, just commit to being curious. Don't force yourself to try to change anything. Just show up with curiosity, exploring where this stuff came from. And with time, you'll have more and more distance between you and these thoughts. And it'll get easier and easier to catch them in action, interrogate them. You'll notice that they don't show up quite as much, or when they do show up, maybe they're not quite as powerful. So maybe it'll still occur to you like, oh, she shouldn't be wearing that, but it won't be that gut-wrenching, super visceral, powerful way that it maybe used to feel. It'll just be kind of a passing, floating by thought that you observe from a distance and think to yourself, oh, isn't that interesting? I had that same kind of thought again. I no longer believe that, but it's just a thought. I don't have to attach to it, and I don't have to believe it. So that's what the goal of interrogating your thoughts is about, is just creating that space and distance so that you really can eventually let it go and not have it have any power over you, over what you believe, or over how you move through the world. And It is worth saying here that all of this can be applied to yourself as well. This isn't only about judging other people's bodies. You can also apply this to yourself. Catching those thoughts in action, really noticing when they show up, labeling them, like this is a fat phobic thought in which I am equating weight with moral value. Or this is a sexist thought in which I believe because I'm a woman, my job is to be, attractive and turn people on in the world. That is how you label the thought. That opens up a possibility for you to start interrogating, questioning, challenging, exploring where these thoughts came from, how they affect you. All of the stuff that interrogating brings you into a better understanding of who you really are and what you really believe, and puts that space and distance between you and the old conditioning or the old socialization about bodies, weight, beauty, whatever it is. This can be applied to you as well. So I'd love to hear from you in the comments if you want to share your experiences with this, if you've ever tried interrogating your thoughts, if you find yourself judging other people's bodies or choices in food or clothing or lifestyle or whatever, how it feels to apply these steps and what outcome it really, engenders in you when you've applied these steps versus when you just immediately believe that thought and act as if it is fact. I'd love to hear from you. That's it.